And I'm like, so talk me through like how you were taught to read this. And he pulls out his notebook and goes to like a specific date when Coach Davies, like his first meeting with Coach Davies as a freshman, and he like slides the notebook over to me. And that continued the whole time we were together. Like towards the end of the season, he's like, dang it. I'm like, what's going on, Jack? Like in the middle of the meeting, like he's all upset. He's like, I'm running out of room in the notebook. He used the same notebook for 4 years.
On today's episode of the Left Hash Call, we are joined by an individual who just wrapped up his second season as the offensive coordinator at Carlton College. His offense was in the top 3 in the MIAC in points per game, total yardage, passing yards per game, offensive efficiency, as well as coached the Offensive Player of the Year in the MIAC, Jack Curtis. Joining the show today, the offensive coordinator for Carlton College, Alex Balogh. How are we doing today, sir?
Doing great, Seth. Really appreciate you having me on. Really excited to get into this conversation.
Of course, yeah. Let's chat a little bit about, this season. How have things been, kind of since you wrapped up, and kind of what's your overall takeaway from the 2025 season?
Yeah, I think that we made a lot of progress this year as opposed to last year. Only one more win, but in terms of offensive production, vibes, hard to always quantify vibes, but just all those things, I think we took a big leap from year 1 to year 2. I think, obviously it's players, not plays. A lot of that comes down to players, but then also just some adjustments we made offensively going from my first year here to my second year here. But no, I mean, it was a good year. Always hard to say a year's successful when you come up short of your ultimate goals, which are championships, right? MIAC championships, national championships. And always leaves a sour taste in your mouth when you finish on a loss, right? That's never the best feeling. But, as time's gone on and as we, get a few weeks out of it, you really just get to look back and think about all the special things that this team accomplished, all the records that we had, guys break offensively, defensively, as a team, as a unit. And especially I know we're going to talk about this at some point, but Jack Curtis and everything he went through, that made everything even more special and more meaningful.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, we'll absolutely get into his story a little bit. I mean, absolutely unbelievable what he was able to go through and push through. Let's chat a little bit about kind of what's been on your plate since the season wrapped up. Been on the road recruiting a little bit. I know you recruit the East Coast. Have you been out there already yet this year? And kind of what's been it like? What's been on your schedule the last few weeks?
Yeah, so I did a little bit of East Coast recruiting. My girlfriend's from Connecticut, and so
Okay.
it was kind of like a work vacation combo, right? So went out to Connecticut to spend some time with her family, and then took a couple days to get on the road and see some guys out in the New England area. And so that was productive. That was a good time. I'm here holding down the fort for the next 2 weeks. We kind of rotate which coaches are on the road, which coaches are not, just because, being a national recruiting school, we can't really control when guys get here. They might be like, hey coach, I'm rolling up on Wednesday. And it's like, okay, well, we better have a coach on campus Wednesday, because we can't just be like, hey, come on Saturday, drive over. Like, no, these are flights, and there's a lot more that goes into it. So that's important. So Coach Janelle and I are holding down the fort now, and then I'm taking off December 14th to go hit the DMV, and some other parts of the East Coast. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Besides that, just kind of reflecting on the season, starting, it's never too early just to start watching the cut-ups and, okay, what did we do well? What did we do poorly? What can we improve upon? Already well into that, and thinking about, what are the next steps for us to take the big leap offensively going forward, so that we can be just as productive in every game, because that's a big thing we want to do going forward. So yeah, that's kind of where everything's at. And, took a little bit of a break. Not much, but
Right.
a little bit of
Yeah,
that.
I think that gets kind of tossed aside sometimes in the coaching profession. Like, it's good to take those breaks. It's good to kind of unwind a little bit because then it allows you to kind of come back. Not necessarily more motivated because you're always motivated to be better, but definitely feeling refreshed allows you to kind of come back and hit it harder than you would have. You said Connecticut. One of the things that I've always wanted to go do is check out the pizza scene over there in New Haven. Is that something you've dived into a little bit?
I need to because I consistently am so over the summer, that's kind of like the biggest travel stretch for us is the summer camp circuit. And being the East Coast recruiter and us being a high academic school, the Ivy League camps are like gold for us. And so, I'm going to like the Harvard prospect camps, the Yale prospect camps. I'm spending all this time there. And Yale always gives me like a sub or like a pasta lunch. And it's really good, so I always, like, eat
But
it. Yeah, it's really good, but, like, I'm eating it, I'm happy, but I really should probably just, like, take that lunch break, drive down into, like, downtown New Haven, and then
right.
grab a pie, but then the way they do it is they do, like, a morning session, a quick break, and then the same guys come out for the afternoon, and they use that to do, like, a player panel, give the prospects lunch and stuff like that, and so just I'm always like cautious of like eating and because I got a big appetite. I'm gonna eat a whole pizza. Like there's no doubt about that, especially if it's that good.
Especially
And
in
so
New Haven, right? Yeah.
yeah, especially in New Haven and the Yale Bowl, like in summer, that's gonna get to like 110 on the turf. And if I just eat a whole pie and then I got to go back for 2 hours and try to work, that's not good business.
Yeah, you might need to take a nap after that for sure. But
Yeah.
you mentioned, kind of diving into some of the maybe some of the analytics, some of the cut ups. Anything that jumps out to you right away of things that that maybe not necessarily schemes that you want to put in, but things that you need to get better at going forward.
Um, Definitely. I think gotta have the situations. So short yardage, red zone, that's immediately something that we made a huge jump from last year to this year there, in terms of success, putting the ball in the paint, things like that. But we need to take another big leap there. And that's one of those things that sometimes like being air raid and base, like that's always something you gotta navigate and balance out. I was like, watch Mississippi State do it. They're in 10 personnel and just run wide zone. And they're like, well, our cat's better than your cat and we're still going to score. But I think we got to navigate that. I have to navigate that at a higher level. And then it's always about, when are you doing too much? When are you doing too little? I think that's always like do less and do it better or do more and be multiple. Like that's, you got to walk that fine line. And
Absolutely.
so transitioning to what was literally an entire new offensive scheme, which I give a lot of our guys credit for, because it's like new OC comes in and it's like two new offenses in 2 years. Like I was basically a new offensive coordinator this year. And they ran with it and they jumped at it. But at the same time, it's like, okay, we threw all this stuff at them. Now we got a whole year of film to look at it. It's like, okay, what definitely really, really worked? What are some stuff that we need to go back and reassess maybe what we're teaching the quarterback progression wise or footwork wise or how that receiver's running the route and things like that? Or is it just need to be scrapped? Do we need to substitute this for that? Like those are things that are definitely a priority right now. Well, right now everyone's going on the road, so more so January. But yeah, those are some of the big things that we're looking at. And then it always gets dictated by recruiting and the people you have in the room. So it's players, not plays, like I said. So depending on, some of the guys we bring in the class and stuff like that, that can always dictate how we mold our offense as well. So
Right, and you talk about players, players formations plays. I know that when I was at Simpson, Coach Aldinger, he was a Mount Union guy. That's kind of where that phrase kind of comes from. Very familiar with that. But you mentioned like the defenses that you do see, and two of the teams that you play, two of the top teams are still playing, right? And
yep.
and the funny thing about those two teams is defensively, it's rather simple. Like both of their defenses are rather simple, but they are just so good at that defense. They're so good at the players that they have are so talented, and it's kind of like you said, that the simplicity versus doing more. And when you play those simple defenses, sometimes they can be a little bit more difficult to go against versus a team that might throw you a bunch of junky fronts and do all these different things on the back end. But it's certainly, like you said, that fine line.
Yeah, no, we challenge ourselves, right? We automatically have to get challenged because of the conference we play in, and everyone talks about the St. John's and Bethels, and they're beasts, right? But then Concordia, Gustavus, school across the river, we call them school across St. Olaf, all those schools, right?
Love
They're
it.
the whole conference is really, really competitive, really, really good. Um, and but yeah, I mean, and challenging ourselves with Whitewater in the out of conference, it's like,
Of
okay,
course,
yeah, we're
yeah.
going against the best, but definitely St. John's, Bethel, they're incredibly sound. Like their players are so comfortable with what they're running. They know exactly what they're going to do against every look that you could possibly throw at them. And so they always have an answer. It might not always, they're even if you scheme them up, right, and you're like, okay, this should be a gotcha. Like their guys are really good at just adjusting on the fly. They know where they're weak, they know where they're strong, and they're gonna, okay, hey, we're weak here, so we're gonna make sure that like that weakness is a 4-yard gain instead of a 14-yard gain, right? They do a phenomenal job of that. So yeah, that's also another step, is just continuing to get to the point where, like I said earlier, the success is evenly distributed throughout the season, right? That's always the main goal.
Yeah, you talk about playing Whitewater early in the year. I think playing a team of that caliber, especially in our country, they're one of the purple bloods, as some call them. I think playing a team like that can either do really good things for you, do really bad things for you as far as your confidence. When I was playing at Simpson, we went down and played Mary Hardin Baylor week 1 when they won the national title, and we lost. I've never seen 80 points on a scoreboard before, but and so that definitely derailed us a little bit going forward. But then you look at it, yourself, you go play them, you play them, you know, um, certainly that wasn't the score, but you don't, you're not in it necessarily, but like you play them hard, you play them tough, and going forward for the rest of the year, like it definitely seemed to help you.
It definitely did. That was one of those games that, you can always say, like, every coach always says, like, oh, it comes down to like 8 or so plays, right? Like, yeah.
Right.
It was one of those games where the first half, it was a really, really competitive game. We had a going back to finishing in the red zone, we had a 3-yard line. We're on the 3 going in to score, throw an interception, about to make it 14-17. It's like, okay, like, yeah, that's a 14-point swing there because they score on that drive. And then a kickoff return for a touchdown for them. It's
Mm,
like, yeah, that kind of beats you down. And then after that, it was, things start to snowball, right? But
right.
in that
Yeah.
game, we felt we left that game with a ton of confidence, because we were like, okay, this is one of the best teams in the country, and we're hanging, right? And that definitely allowed us to go throughout the rest of the season feeling confident, feeling good. And then a big part of it is making sure that, like, when we get to a St. John's, when we get to a Bethel, we don't blink, right? We're trying to get to that point where it's all just nameless, faceless
Right.
opponents. Put the ball down. Let's go to work. Let's just do what we do. It's about us. It's not about who we're going against. That's continually what we're trying to strive for, and that's why we're going to continue to challenge ourselves with those out of conference games, and that's why we're going back to Whitewater next year. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, so you guys are going back there next year. Okay, cool.
You
Yeah,
playing that
Perkins,
on it?
man. Yeah, no, where else would you rather be? Because guess what? You're gonna go play at Royal Stadium. You go play it, in Collegeville, and you're gonna see the same type of environments. Like it's what it is. That's what it's all about. So I commend you guys for doing that, and that's awesome. And I'll be looking forward to watching that one again next year. But I want to talk about you now. I want to go back into the past a little bit. You started your journey in the coaching world as a strength coach, right? At Denison. Tell me about that pursuit. Did you feel like you would always be in the strength and conditioning field, or was that kind of just while you were still playing? What? Tell me about that.
Yeah, that was funny. So um, I'm a I'm a meathead. Like, I love bump. Like, I'm into like Chris Bumstead bodybuilding. My dad was a bodybuilder. Like I'm very much into
I love
that
it.
world. Probably should have been more into the field work as a player than I was the weight room. Just, I was a solid player. I probably could have maximized that a little bit more, but no. So I was a very good lifter, very good off-season guy, and then my senior year spring, they always have like a football guy do the intern job where, like, for your student work, you help out, like you're helping run the lifts, right? And so I was doing that, and then Coach Taylor, who I believe is still at Minnesota State, if I'm not mistaken. He was the strength conditioning coach and DB coach, and he ended up taking the job out here. And we didn't have a guy because they had to fill that job. Take some time, and I'm a senior in college, and Coach Adam was like, "Hey, can you run this lift?" And I wasn't like, obviously liability wise, I wasn't. There was always the strength conditioning coach was there, but he was kind of in his office just doing his own thing, and I was just
Oh
like
boy.
running
Oh
lift as
man. That is,
a
yeah. Wow.
21-year-old. So that was kind of the introduction to me into running a strength and conditioning program, I guess I should say.
What are some of the big things you learned doing that? Because obviously, like like you said, like you get kind of thrown into the fire a little bit. And I think everybody that's been in this profession of coaching at some point gets thrown into it a little bit. Maybe when they're not ready, maybe when they are. It all just kind of depends on the experience, I guess. But what are some things that you kind of still use from your time still in strength conditioning?
Yeah. So that was really, I guess, multiple things. So for me, that was extra challenging because those were all guys that I just played with. And it kind of immediately forced me to learn and understand relationships and how you have to manage those as a coach in any realm. Because, like, okay, a guy just showed up to lift. Well, like, we just went out together like 2 nights ago and like we're getting after it. And now, like, Monday lift, I have to be like, dude, you can't show up to lift. Like, that's not the standard that we have here.
Right.
And so
Yeah. Oh
that
boy.
was one of those things that I had to like try to figure out, like, because I was still just a normal student, right? I was like an actual coach. So that was one of those things, like trying to navigate that was really interesting. And that kind of really helped me going into the profession going forward, because then I immediately started running my own room once I got to, university school and then Case Western, and just being able to manage, like, okay, these are like the professional boundaries you have to have set so that you can be successful and push guys to reach a standard. Other thing, just in terms of strength conditioning, that I kind of realized was you have to always start with the fundamentals. You can't like skip steps and be like, hey, go ahead and power clean 315 pounds with awful form and go hurt yourself. It's like, no, like, we got to start at the ground. We got to make it simple, clear, concise, easy to understand. Okay, now we're going to be able to make progress. And that's kind of where, here at Carlton, we always talk about keep stacking, like trying to get 1% better every day. The only way to do that is to have a really good, strong foundation in the fundamentals. So, yeah, that's what I got to say there.
Yeah. No, that's interesting to hear you say that last little piece there. We talked a little bit about the River Falls connection, and it's interesting with them. Like they installed the entire offense in 3 days, and so they say install 90% of the offense in 3 days, and it's like they build that really strong base with the stuff that they do really well, and then just keep stacking those wrinkles, those little things that they do here and there. But I think any good offense, any good football program in general, like if you don't have that solid base, like everything else will probably crumble underneath of it. But you talk about university school, and I was a little confused at first when I was looking into this a little bit because I was like, okay, university school. I'm like, which one? Which school? Which? But and then I do a little bit more deeper dive into that, and that's your first opportunity as a football coach, right? Talk a little bit about that experience. You said you led your own room for the first time. What was that experience like?
Yeah, that was a definitely an interesting experience on multiple fronts. One, it was COVID,
Mm.
and that whole period was interesting. Um, I was in grad school at Case, getting my MBA and balancing that and that was weird because they were trying to figure out how to do like a master's program, like semi-virtually, semi-in-person, doing
Okay.
that, also trying to get into coaching, at university school. Luckily, the head coach at university school was actually my former like high school head coach.
Okay.
Uh, and so that was kind of the connection. That's why I decided to end up working there. Um, and just running my own room, coaching linebackers, which I had never, that was my first experience of like, hey, learn it. Like you have to coach a position that you've never played or like sat in the room for. It's like, okay,
Yeah,
like
it's
I'm figure this out. And
especially
that's,
coaching your own position. That's yeah, you don't get to there's no hey coach, can I sit in and see what you do for a little bit? No, you're doing this thing. That's that is awesome.
yeah. And then I was also like the JV defensive coordinator.
Oh
Um,
boy.
so I'm calling plays and all that. And we were a smaller team anyways. So that was an interest. Like we didn't have our own practices for like JV. So, and so they're all just scout guys that I'm like reviewing the defense that we're going to like, you're going against Kirtland, which you probably don't know Kirtland, but, Kirtland is like like the pinnacle of small school success, just wins
Okay.
every state championship. And, they're like a triple team. They're like a triple team. The varsity team's not playing a single triple team. So
Oh
these guys have
no.
no idea what they're doing. And we're trying to get ready to like, and we have like 15 minutes at the end of a Thursday practice to like go over this before Saturday. And then Friday, we don't even see them. And then Saturday's the JV game. So yeah, that was really fun. And that was a great opportunity to just learn from some great coaches. I'm a big believer that like, it doesn't matter the level. There's great coaches at every level that just know ball and know how to connect with people and know how to communicate information at a really high level. So just being able to be around those guys, learn from them was awesome. But then also you just learn like, okay, if you're coaching small school football, it's not going to be smooth.
Yeah,
Nothing is
right.
going to go according to plan. You're going to have to learn how to do things on the fly. You're going to have to do things you've never done before. And, it's one of those things that you always have to have that era of that confidence, that you're going to be able to do it. And that comes from work, that comes from preparation. But you also have to be like, you also want to be honest when you're with
Be a
guys,
little
like,
self-aware for sure of some limitations perhaps,
yeah, be self-aware when you're calling it, when you're preparing, but then also like with the guys, like, hey, I'm going to make a mistake this game. Like there's no getting around it. I'm going to put you in a bad spot. You're going to have to get out of it. And then I'm going to make sure that never happens again. Right. And just making sure that all the guys know, like, no, this is the same way that you have to get better. I have to get better. I always talk about the guys, like we expect perfect effort, perfect attitude, perfect focus here. They can expect that from me. But then and the reason those are the expectations is because you control those. Then outcomes, obviously, those are outside of control. So it's like, okay, those are the things we learn from. Those are how we adjust our process. And so, kind of rambling here.
No,
But
that's great.
yeah, those were some things that I kind of learned from that experience.
Yeah, I always, when I was coaching at Simpson, also playing, we always have these team camps, and you have teams from all walks of life. You got the small little tiny Missouri school that runs the triple, and then you got like Southeast Polk High School here in Iowa, who has won like 5 straight state titles, and they're going against each other, and you're like seeing the little, the tiny little school like run the veer, and this school's never seen it before, and they're getting gashed for 10 a pop, and you're like, this is why I love football. I mean, just the different levels of that thing. But you mentioned Case Western Reserve. You go there as the running backs coach. That first experience at the college level, as far as being a football coach. What were some of the biggest things that you learned, that first year? And then also, what do you remember about coaching a guy like Antonio Orsini?
Wow, I'm young, but that's still a deep cut. Uh, I had phenomenal mentors there. Coach Doublelack, Coach Debs, just a wizard offensively. And that's kind of where I got my first introduction to the air raid. I don't know if they necessarily refer to themselves as an air raid, but they're very air raid. At least when I was there, I'm assuming they're still pretty similar. But then also just Coach Debs, because of the John Carroll connection, is so tied into like those NFL guys, and so it's like it was so funny. Like sometimes he's just like, I'm wondering about this, and then you just like he just on the phone with like McDaniels or somebody like that.
Oh my gosh.
They're playing about football. It's like, okay, that's pretty sweet.
That is awesome. What's the connection on? I'm not super familiar with the connection there.
Yeah, so Coach Debs, coached like one of his first jobs was at he went to John Carroll,
Okay.
which powerhouse, right?
Yeah.
And then went there and then coached there. I think it was his first coaching job. But he was there during like the golden era, right?
Okay.
During that time when like all those dudes that were playing for him like went on to coach in the NFL and go be GM.
Yeah.
and all that. And so that's where he kind of got that connection of like all those dudes that are now across the league, like he's very tied into. And so just, a football savant like Coach Debs, being able to work with him was incredible. And then also Coach Slesh is just like my coaching. He's gonna be upset with this. My coaching grandpa. He was perfect because Coach Debs pushed me. Like I give him a ton of credit because like I'm making like the call sheet for him for game day as like a first year offensive coach now. And just really made sure I was paying attention to detail, focused, all those things. He just really, really hammered home. And then Coach Slash was like the laid back kind of guy in my corner type of deal, like helping me out, right? Like because Coach Slash is the offensive coordinator, but Coach Debs is very heavily involved in the offense. And so that was fun for me, just being able to work with those two. And I was also the tight ends coach, so that's why running tight ends, you're obviously very tied to the offensive line, and so that was a really good relationship. And then Antonio was a character, just a great personality, great kid, and just a phenomenal football player. Came in, transfer. His older brother had gone to Case, was a really good receiver for them. He's actually now working for the Chargers as a scout, which is kind of
really
cool.
Wow. That's
Giuseppe,
awesome.
Giuseppe Orsini. And his older brother was interning for us while he also, this was COVID, so he worked at PNC Bank, and this is a little bit of a side tangent, but he worked at PNC Bank, and they let him work remote because of COVID, and it was like they were trying to wean him off, but he's like, oh no, I need to like stay on. So he's working remote for PNC Bank while he coaches. And he was definitely more prioritizing like the coaching side of things.
I'm sure he was.
The banking side of things. And so it was cool for him because he got to be on a staff that his brother was playing for. That's part of the reason he transferred to Case, and just really good school. And so that was fun, just being able to see that family, be really connected to that family. But no, Antonio, phenomenal player, one of the fastest kids on the team, one of the strongest kids on the team, could have been a stud receiver as much as he was a stud running back. Could have started at safety. He was a really, really good safety. Part of the reason he also transferred was he was playing DB at the other school, and he wanted to end up playing receiver for us, or not receiver, play running back for us. But no, that was fun, and just being able to coach an all-conference guy your first year of college coaching is kind of crazy. But again, it's players. Like I was, ball security, pass pro, how to run a route. Okay, you just kind of go. You just go do your thing, man. You're a better football player than everybody else out here.
Yeah, after my first year at River Falls, I went coach receivers at Simpson, and we had a freshman all-conference receiver, Noah Craycraft. He's still there, and I'm like, this is my first year coaching receivers, and I'm like, hey man, like, we like to do these releases. These are kind of the main things that we are trying to do here, and he just never did any of those, and he just always was open. So I'm just like, you know what? You You go do your thing. I'm gonna make sure all these other guys know how to do a split release and all this good stuff. So I'll just let me know what you need from me, I guess. So we'll let you know the game plan. We'll just let you know what routes we want you to run, and we'll call it a day. So, but we'll
Well,
talk about an experience where you get to be tied into not only the run game but also the pass game as well. Like what an incredible experience that first time coaching on the offensive side of the ball.
that was, again, I would not be where I'm at today without Case Western and being able to coach running backs and tight ends. It's like the two positions where you absolutely have to know everything. And that was so helpful. I like, okay, I better learn pass pro. Like, I better learn the pass game because we got into
Totally.
empty a decent amount. And we were like doing some split field stuff and things like that. So like, no, you got to know the whole deal. And not only knowing it from my perspective, but then you got to know it well enough to coach it, right? It's one thing if we know it, but then how do you communicate it, elegantly, efficiently? And then I always like to make it fun. Like, okay, it's got to be effective. It's got to be efficient. Also should be fun. And so that was awesome. It was also cool because we were really multiple there. Again, I would say that they're pretty air raid in principle, but like they'll get under center and do some stuff and have some fun that way. So just being able to learn a bunch of football from really, really good football minds and another really, really good conference, right? Like that's a loaded conference. Well, you know, sucks that Mellon's no longer in it.
Yeah,
I know
right.
they a bunch of reasons why they had to end up making that transition makes a bunch of sense for them. But no, it's still a really really good
It's
conference.
loaded. Yeah,
Yeah,
no doubt about it. Yeah.
even when I was there
Um,
too. So
yeah, you talk about then going, coaching different positions, but then you get your first, full time coaching position at Amherst. You're also the recruiting coordinator. I'm assuming, I think when you're a young coach, I feel like you want to talk about scheme. You want to talk about all these these concepts you got. You saw the stuff Dan Casey just posted this thing, and oh man, we should put that in. But the players are what makes those plays. And talk to me about that first. Being the recruiting coordinator there and kind of learning. Obviously, I'm assuming you were involved with recruiting that case, but maybe not necessarily as much as obviously being the recruiting coordinator. Talk to me about that experience.
yeah, so at Case I was lucky enough to have my own region. So
Oh,
that
that's
was
awesome.
cool. I was the West Coast recruit. Like I think I was West Coast and New England were my regions.
Okay.
So that I had already had that experience, which was huge. Then transitioning to Amherst, which they'd make me get on you. The H is silent, Amherst, not Amherst. So
Okay,
that
I'll make sure I correct that.
that was very much specified to me when I first got there. I definitely did the exact same thing. Um, but no, at Amherst, just being the recruiting coordinator was a huge step for me because now like I'm still like kind of like one of the lower guys in the totem pole, but I'm now kind of in some ways like managing other people, right? Like I have
Right.
to talk to a DC, Coach Boos, who's the man, who's been at Amherst for longer than I've been alive almost, and be like, hey, this is like how we're doing things this year. Like, hey, we got to change this like pipeline process, and you're the youngest guy in the room by 30
It's
years.
like, okay,
Well,
buddy.
yeah, yeah,
I've been doing this
exactly.
longer than you've been in diapers, man.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so that was fun. The nice thing is those dudes are some of the best people in the business, and so, um, they uh, definitely razzed me about it, and gave me the business now and then. But they were great sports about it, and anything that was better for the team, they were all for. So no, it was good. And then also being a recruiting coordinator, like the way it kind of worked out, I was like also basically like Coach Mills is like assistant, right? Like I spent just as much time in his office as I did in my own. And that was really cool, just being able to get an insight into everything that goes into being a head coach. Um, because I was, I was mostly recruiting, and also, my first year there, I was on defense and the corners coach, and he was like the overall DBs guy. So like, yeah, we were in lockstep then. And then I transitioned my second year to receivers, and then he moved to tight ends. So then, okay, we're in lockstep now. And so, we just had a really special relationship, and he was kind enough to like kind of let me see like the whole thing, like everything that goes into being a head coach at a high academic school. And just developed a really, really special relationship and got to learn a lot about the profession. And my aspiration is to be a high academic head coach at the D3 level. And so that was huge.
Did you always know you wanted to be a football coach?
No.
When this maybe obviously goes back a little bit, but when did you think, hey, this is what I want to do, or were you kind of forced into it a little bit, or what was kind of that mindset when you were like, hey, this is what I want to do?
Yeah. My mom would say I was always going to be a coach. That's what, because I have a younger brother, 4 years younger. So it's young enough that, well, we still fought, but like young enough that like I knew things that he didn't. So like I was like, hey, we're going to the gym, and I'm not shooting. I'm literally just putting him through a drill circuit. Or like, and I was in high school, and his practices were after ours for middle school, and I'm installing an offense for his for his middle school football team.
Man,
yeah. And so I was like the OC. I didn't call the plays, but like I put in the offense, and then my dad called the plays, which has its own funny story, because my dad actually ended up like sitting next to Eric Mangini on a flight one time, and
okay, yeah,
talking about our football, like our middle school football, like drawing up the plays that we're running. And I just think that's like the funniest thing, that like, because it was awesome. Not like, knowing what I know now, I'm like, this is embarrassing that actually happened.
Oh, no.
And then
That's
more
awesome.
small world stuff. I actually ended up recruiting Mangini's son, unsuccessfully, but that was fun too. No, that was kind of my first intro into like coaching, but I didn't really think of it as anything. And then go into Denison, and I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And that's why I kind of credit like a liberal arts education, just really made me well-rounded and capable of going a bunch of different directions with my life. And so was at Denison, was doing like consulting stuff, interning in Chicago. And just, I was like, this just isn't me. Like, I don't want to wear a suit every day and sit in a cubicle. And like, that's just not what I'm looking for. So then I went to get my MBA from Case, and was really of the mindset that I wanted to get into like the professional management side of sports, like be a general manager, scout, something like that. And, a big, I don't even think Coach Debs knows this to this point, but a big draw to why I went to Case was Coach Debs' connection with everyone in the NFL with the John Carroll thing. And so I was like, okay, they were in COVID, so they didn't have, they were practicing some, but they didn't have football. So I was like, okay, I'll start coaching at university school, build my resume. Okay, second year there in the master's program, started coaching at Case. And obviously it wasn't the worst decision, because Giuseppe ended up going to the Chargers as a scout. So I was like, okay, like, yeah, it was an educated process on my end. But just while I was there, I just got the itch, where it was like, even at one point, Coach Debs asked me, he's like, hey, a certain team's calling, like, do you have any interest? And I was like, ooh, I think I got to say no, as much as I'm confused by that decision. Because I just had too much fun coaching guys like Antonio Orsini, and the whole crew there, and working with the staff. I was like, no, this is what I need to do for the rest of my life.
That's awesome. No, that's that is a experience and a decision that I'm sure like you don't regret at all, right? Yeah, absolutely. You talk about one of those first jobs. Is there anything that you still think about when you were working at Tyson Foods?
Yeah, I miss being. So I was like, so it was an R&D. I was in the R&D facility.
Okay.
And basically my job was to try to get everyone to sing Kumbaya and love each other.
Oh boy.
And because it was just like, okay, you have like all these, different, everyone within a company has their own like goals, right? So like marketing has goals, R&D has goals, the business unit has goals. And so my job is just try to create alignment between all those different groups. I think I signed like way too many NDAs to like actually talk about anything beyond
Oh,
that.
geez.
Um,
I don't want to get you in
and
trouble. Jeez.
yeah. So that was my job, right? Just try to get everyone in alignment. And it was good. But a lot of it was like interviewing different people from different sectors and all that. But in between interviews and things like that, I had some time, and it's an R&D facility. So they're constantly like doing like taste tests and sampling. And I just happened to be in just about every sampling session that they had on Tyson
That is
Foods.
awesome.
I know like some of it I see on the shelves now. Like I'm walking by the freezer aisle and I'm like, oh, like, yeah, I was like a part, like I was like, and it was also funny because I was a completely different perspective, right? There's all these like like they eventually there's a whole process for them, and they eventually go to like I don't want to say test subjects, but like testing outside of a controlled room, right? It's still a controlled test, but like you're testing like general people, right? Random population. But then in the initial test, it's like people in marketing and the business unit. And then there's me, just like a college football player, like a totally, right? Totally like I'm the clientele, right? Of like the frozen sausage biscuit.
Yeah, you're like, dude, this is my thing. I do this every day.
So everyone else is like, I feel like it's like a 5 or a 6, or like rating it, whatever. And I'm like, I eat a whole box of these. This is a 10. Like, yep, this is everything with a 10 for me. So I wasn't very helpful. But I miss that. Like just being able to, I never packed a lunch. I was like, no, there's going to be a sausage
chicken.
tasting. Yeah, there's going to be something. Yeah, there was always something. So it was a good deal.
Yeah, do you ever like? Do you still pull a bag of Tyson's chicken off of the shelf, and you're like, man, what are they doing these days? Like, we got to get better. I got to go back to doing the chicken for a while.
Yeah. So it was the way it worked out, and they don't do this anymore. They actually ended up consolidating everything down to Arkansas. But when I was there, was like there's 2 separate, I'm forgetting the words, but like I was more on like the Jimmy Dean like breakfast sandwiches. So Tyson owns a lot of different things. So I wasn't like the like chicken side of things that you would think of.
Mm-hmm.
I was more like prepared foods, I think is what they called it. So like
TV dinners.
Yeah, stuff like
okay.
that. Like the Jimmy Dean breakfast sandwich would be the big one that people would recognize. So I do get a lot of the Tyson food stuff. Like I'll just get like the oven baked chicken and all that stuff. It's pretty easy as a coach. Like you're, in season, you get home at, 9, 10 at night. It's like, okay, this has to be quick and fast and all that. But no, I definitely look at like some of the Jimmy Dean stuff and things like that. And I'm like, okay, I was on that team. That was a good thing. That was a good thing. There was one product that we were making, and again, I can't talk about it, but it was like the best thing I'd ever eaten. I was like, this is phenomenal. And I think it probably had something to do with like the cost per unit just didn't align with how much they charge and stuff like that. So they just couldn't mass produce it. Which is the most disappointing thing. Cause every time I get in the grocery store, I walk by the frozen foods aisle and I'm like, okay, did they like figure it out? Did they get the cost down enough to like produce this? And the answer has still been no.
Oh man. Well, I mean, this has been maybe the most entertaining conversation that we've ever had on this show with Tyson's Foods. I mean, that is unbelievable. But to transition to maybe a similar topic, becoming an offensive coordinator for the first time. Maybe not totally aligned, but there's probably some carryover there.
Oh yeah.
But this pass play you're going to put in maybe similar to, hey, this food is maybe the same thing. But talk about that transition to finally being an offensive coordinator for the first time. When you first got to Carlton, what was kind of your initial vision for, hey, what do we want to do with this thing?
Yes. So one, it's always bigger than just one person, right? So you gotta make sure that you leverage the the phenomenal staff you have around you, which I do. And so, Coach Jernell is he's a football savant. Kind of came up in it as a defensive guy, but he'll always say like he's going to do whatever the program needs, whatever's best for the program. And so, since I've been here and most of his time at Carlton, he's been an offensive guy, and then he had some time as an offensive guy before this. But it really just immediately came to like conversations between us. And it was, we were bringing back all 11 offensive starters when I first got here, including a preseason All-American and, returning starting quarterback. So it's like, and Jack Curtis, who's a dude. So it's like, okay, Coach Davies, really good coach. He knows football. Like, let's not, reinvent the wheel here.
Right.
Let's make it, I can learn a system, right, easier than they can all learn a new system. So let me adjust. And so there were some minor tweaks here and there. The biggest thing we tried to change was like, okay, we're an up-tempo team. That's our core. We're an up-tempo RPO team. That was our base fundamental as an offense when I first got here. And we weren't going to change that. And so we're like, okay, who's another team that is somewhat similar that's doing it at a really high level? Well, River Falls, right? And so we spent some time there. Coach Walker is the man. Joe's the man. Those are all like phenomenal dudes. Great people. And they were kind enough to like let us go watch some spring practice and like sit in on meetings and things like that, pick their brains, talk ball, which was really cool. And so, we kind of tried to become more multiple in terms of before we had like, we were, again, going fast, trying to keep things simple. We have limited time here because of the high academic nature of the school. Like, football, like we want it to be 1A, 1B, but it's never going to be 1A. Like that's just not going to happen. And nor do we want it to happen. Right. That's not what we're probably like. That's not the mission and the vision here. But we were trying to be more multiple, while still keeping that core fundamental, like we're going to be an up-tempo RPO team. So we added more run schemes and things like that. And so that was kind of like the first thing that we kind of changed when I first got here. But yeah, that was kind of the biggest change, when I came in. And then obviously like the other big learning is like how to call an offense. Like I was lucky because I was the defensive coordinator at university school. So I was used to calling plays then. And then at Case Western, I was the JV offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
So now that was like, I had 2 plays. Like that was limited
right
play. Yeah. But at least I had gotten into the flow of like calling it. And so coming here, I had at least some experience in doing that, but then also the way we set up practice is helpful, especially in the spring. Like Coach Jay would be like, don't script it. Like just have like a practice call sheet for today and get used to it. And I'm going to put the ball in different spots and I'm going to say it down a distance and like get it done. I'm like, okay, sounds good. So there's
that sounds awesome.
Yeah. Here we don't do like, hey, the ball's on the left hash, the ball's on the right hash, the ball's at like, again, you have to do certain situations, right? Okay, it's red zone, it's third down period, things like that. We do that 1,000%. But he's constantly getting me and the rest of our coaching staff ready for what game day's like. The other big adjustment was calling it from the sideline. Like that threw me off at first, which I had to do when I was, JV coaches. You're not in the box for anything. But
be pretty
like
awesome if you were.
At Amherst, I was used to, the OC being in the box, right? When I was the receivers coach, I was in the box with him. When I was the DBs guy, I was the guy in the box. So I had constantly like just gotten a vision of like, I'm used to seeing things from the box now, right? And because I had never coached a college game from the sideline, besides JV, and that was a huge adjustment at first. Just changing the way I see the game and perceive the game. But again, it just comes with reps. And that's again where like the way Coach Jernell structures practice, I'm getting reps of it. Like the same way that our players need reps, I need reps. And he makes sure that I get those reps in the practice scenario. So, that was Good deal. I think I fully answered your
Yeah,
question.
no, absolutely. Talk about Coach Journell in general and what makes him such a good football coach. Like, it sounds like an incredible mentor for you as well. Talk about him a little bit.
You will never find someone that works harder than that man. He grinds,
Hmm.
and he does a good job um, of. He always says, hire people that want to work harder than you, and then make sure they never do. And he says it a little differently than that, but that's what he tries to do. He tries to hire people that are just workers that are going to do everything they can to um, be successful, not just individually, but as a collective. Um, and that also align with his vision because don't get like wins matter, right? Wins matter 1,000%, but it's more than that for Coach Chanel. Like it is about developing great people. Culture is everything. We'll always take a better person, a better cultural fit than a better player every time. Um, it's all about building development. Like I don't have a transfer portal login. Like that's just not a thing.
Hmm.
Um, and so those are all things that Coach Chanel just prioritizes and that he makes sure the people he hires also prioritize. And so that's Coach Chanel. Like he's going to be the hardest worker in the room. And then he's also just going to be the best person in the room. And it just attracts other people that have that same ideology, that have that same vision, that same mindset. And I think that's in large part why he was able to turn around this program and why we're continuing to build is because we get recruits that buy into that. Cause he doesn't like sugarcoat it. He's like, you're going to work. Like it's tough school, tough conference. Like if you want to achieve anything, you're going to have to work. And, we get people to buy into that vision. And that's why the keep stacking mantra is so important. And we have like a billion different sayings. So I'm not even going to get into all of them, but, he's a big saying guy. So yeah, that's what I would say about Coach Shea.
You need one of those walls that has just like all the words on the or all the the buzzwords, but you need one with all the sayings on there. That's definitely what you need there.
Yeah, we have something like that, and then our guys also have like like a shirt with like they call them like journalisms.
Oh, I love
Um,
that. That's awesome. Need
yeah,
that
it's
for
kind of
sure.
funny.
You talk about another hard worker. Let's talk about Jack Curtis. When you first met him and his work ethic and what he was like as a quarterback, what are some of those things that stood out right away?
Jack is one of the brightest football minds and so detail oriented, which was hugely helpful for me. Like I played middle school quarterback, but I didn't play like high level quarterback, right? And so I think, the two hardest, I think there's a lot of positions that are difficult to coach. I think DB is really tough. Every position's tough, but I coach DB, so I'm always a little biased, right? But like O-line and quarterback, like those are tough positions to coach. And that was like a huge jump for me, just taking on the challenge of coaching quarterbacks for the first time. And there's no one you could ask for if that's the task than Jack Curtis. We're sitting in like our first meeting together, and I'm like, so talk me through like how you were taught to read this. And he pulls out his notebook and goes to like a specific date when Coach Davies, like his first meeting with Coach Davies as a freshman, and he like slides the notebook over to me. And that continued the whole time we were together. Like towards the end of the season, he's like, dang it. I'm like, what's going on, Jack? Like in the middle of the meeting, like he's all upset. He's like, I'm running out of room in the notebook. He used the same notebook for 4 years.
Oh my gosh.
Like, and
It's
it
like
was
one of those 5-star like massive notebooks or what? I mean, how many pieces of
no,
paper?
this was like, it was smaller than an iPad in terms of like size.
Really? Wow.
Like it was a little thicker, but like, no, this was like a little like journal, right? Just like, and so he was super concise, super organized. He could go like there would be times we're like game planning and we're like, hey, we're going to bring this back from the game plan last year, right? Or from freshman year. Goes back, okay, yeah, this is like, it's a one-off a one-off deal that he just had in his notebook from like, and he's like, oh yeah, this was September 22nd. And I'm like, he just, he knows ball. There's no
That
better
is
way to put it.
incredible. That is
Um,
awesome. You hear about like, obviously like to the extreme, like you hear guys like Tom Brady, like that is like kind of like psycho killer mentality. Like, hey, I mean, that is when you hear about the greats, like the greats take notes. The greats they aren't just winging it. And, even me, like I would not consider myself one of the greats. And I did not, after we installed that offense the first time, I didn't take a single note after that. So not necessarily proud of that, but like that is like when you hear about the top ones, the guys that are up for all those awards at the end of the year, like those are the guys that are taking all those notes. And that is unbelievable to hear. But, Jack's story this year, and if people are unfamiliar with his story, he went home, right, and he was in North Carolina, and he was having some pretty severe chest pains, and then ultimately was diagnosed with late stage Hodgkin's lymphoma, right, diagnosed with cancer, and I believe, and obviously correct me if I'm wrong here, but he would do chemotherapy on Monday so that he could end up practicing or playing in the game Saturday. I mean, just walk us through that journey this year.
yeah, that was, first of all, before we talk about like anything football related, just happy that he's, doing really, really well, taking the treatment at a really high level. Just started radiation. I think he had his first session of that yesterday. He's like, I was on the phone with him on his drive over there. He's like, I'm just happy I'm not claustrophobic, coach. This would suck then. Bless you.
Thank you.
But no, he's just, again, we call him Captain America. We talked about that before the show because he really is a superhero. That dude is the toughest human being, mentally, physically, emotionally. And he didn't blink. Like he just consistently did the next right thing. And you always say that as a coach, like you're like, hey, do the next right thing, whatever it is, any walk of life. But then when you actually like have something like that, and I'm trying not to get emotional here. When you have something like that, it really pushes you to be like, okay, like, am I the person that's going to give up here? And that was never a thought with Jack Curtis. Like that dude was like continuing to push and at first, like the first thing like we're all thinking is like, okay, hopefully he's okay. And then the next thing you think is like, dang, like that sucks. Like he's a senior, going to be his best year. Like that's so tragic. He's going to miss that. And then like a couple weeks later, he calls us. He's like, I'm playing. And we're like, whoa. Like at first we're like, no, like that's no, you got to focus on. And then, through conversations with his doctors and him and his parents, you're like, might actually be able to do this. And, you get closer to the season and, he had to make the transition from like chemo in North Carolina because he started his sessions there to here at the Mayo Clinic. And so like he couldn't come he missed the first week of camp. Then we get into the season and he's getting his treatment on Monday. And like to give you an understanding of how bad this was, like, first of all, he's trying to balance the schoolwork, right? Because our professors were awesome. They were working with him and all that. But like, he's got to stay somewhat up to date, right? He's going to be an astrophysicist. Like there's no, like,
This dude is like unreal.
yeah. So like not only was there no practice, like he couldn't get out of bed. So there's no meetings. Like I'm not talking to him about football until Friday. So on Friday, that changed my Fridays because now it's like, okay, we got to go over everything. We got to go over the whole game plan. We got to talk about all that stuff. There were days where he's like, it's a Wednesday or Thursday practice, Tuesday practice. Tuesday, he can never do anything. Like he's out of commission. He's bringing a lawn chair and plops the lawn chair down and sits behind the quarterback and just like watches the play. So he can get like a feel for like the progression and like things like that. every once in a while I catch him like it's almost like about to doze off, right? Because he's just so beat up and um so tired. But that was incredibly challenging for him. Pushed me as a coach. Again, got to be efficient, got to be effective, got to have fun. Try to do all that when you're trying to, beat St. John's and you got one day to prep with your starting quarterback. Um, and
My
so
goodness.
yeah, so that definitely pushed me and pushed him to try to get our relationship to the next level, which we did. And then of course, right, it's like finally get done with chemo, like, oh, like he's, so jacked up. He's like, I just got to play ball. And then, he gets to practice. I think he practiced the week of Augsburg, gets into the game, breaks his, like, has 3 fractures in his throwing hand. And then we're right back to, okay, I can't practice. Like, because the way it worked out, like, at the end of the day, like, the 3 fractures, like it took time to heal. So then he tried to practice Friday, tried to give it a go, which I give him all the credit for. Tried to give it a go against Bethel, just couldn't. Right, like we're trying to grab the magic there, with hoping his hand was healthy. Couldn't really get it done, and then he like took like 5 throws a day. Before we played Concordia, like just like, okay, this is a big play, so I got to make sure I'm good here. Like this read, like this week, because of the way they do this, I got to tweak. The read was a little different or whatever it was. This is a one off, and he made sure he took those reps. But like the pain, like every time he'd throw the ball, he'd like be squeezing his hand and like have to take like a couple plays off. And then even in the last game, right, it's like gets helmet straight to the hand, and it's like, oh well, he's done, right? And we're like about to have our last drive, 2-minute drill, and Jack comes up to me, and like you can tell this dude's just like he's in so much pain, like excruciating pain. And I'm like looking at him, I'm like, all right, you ready to, like, you're gonna try to signal? And he's like, no, I'm going in. I'm like, what? Like, and it was just incredible. He gave us a chance too. Like he threw a couple balls that were like, how, with the pain you're under, with all the like bones broken in your throwing hand, or you just like all you like placing the ball like 40 yards down the field exactly where it needed to be. Um, he's Captain America.
I don't have any words for that. I mean, I was familiar with the story, but I was not I did not know a lot of that stuff. And that, thank you for sharing that, by the way. That is I mean, unbelievable. I mean, real. I mean, that is real tough. Like that is like that's not. You can't fake that, man. So I mean, holy cow, that is an unbelievable journey. And I'm thinking about him as well, and going through the kind of this next stage of this whole thing. But man, my goodness, I don't know how to like continue doing this show after that. But I want to talk about you know your philosophy, I guess, a little bit as an offensive coordinator, as an offensive coach, a little bit. Um, when you got here in 2024, your first year, you averaged 20 points per game. This year, averaging almost 34 points a game. What do you think have been the biggest differences for you and for the offense, kind of from one year to the next?
I think multiple things. You know, I think that we just went into this offseason with a mindset of like, okay, what is the best? How are we going to, beat St. John's? How are we going to beat Bethel? Um, and let's come up with our game plan for those games and then use that for every game, right? Because it was kind of my first year. Um, we're in the office for like, the way it worked out, our offensive line coach, he's also a high school, middle school math teacher. And so, our game planning meetings on Monday, like, don't start until 4 o'clock. And like, Coach Chanel and I are here, we're doing our thing, but like, doing it as a staff. And, we're like burning the midnight oil, right? Coming up with game plans. And it was always slightly different than what it was the rest of the year in terms of what we're trying to do. And it's like, okay, well, there's a reason we like it against those guys. Probably just do that and build around that, right? And obviously, like we got to continue to build it so that we can compete with those guys at a higher level. But that was kind of the main thing was making that adjustment, and obviously it paid dividends. We made a big leap. We got to make another big leap here next season. But that was a huge part of it. And then also, I think that, you know, having a year of just calling plays and making adjustments and in-game adjustments, the big one, and trusting myself to make those calls in games of like, okay, no, this is what we got to do. That was a huge leap too. And then the last thing I'd say is confidence in the guys, right? In me, right? Like you're a first year OC, and you know, you got to get total buy-in, right? You got to get total buy-in. And I'm not saying that they weren't bought in, right? But like, you know, it's like a bunch of guys that like had like 1 year of me and 3 years with another OC. Like, yeah, it's like you got to have that transition period. And the guys this year, again, like I said, I was basically a new OC again with a new offense, and just the guys just ran with it and they made it their own. And that's one of the cool things here is, you know, we've got a lot of, some coaches would probably get frustrated with the amount of times we get asked why, like, why are we doing this? Why are we not doing that? Like, but here it's like, no, we got like brilliant people that know a lot about football themselves. And we try to make it, obviously it's, you know, the relationship coaches players, but like it's collaborative. And so that's another thing that was really, really important. I think just the time and the continuous belief, especially from Coach Janelle, were the things that kind of allowed us to make that big leap.
Without going into the weeds too much, what's a week of prep look like for you? Are you, hey, we're going to break this down formationally first, and then, you know, what's kind of that week of planning, you know, leading up to a game look like?
Yeah. So Sunday, keeping it pretty broad on Sunday, really just trying to get an idea of like what's their defensive identity, right? Are they, you know, 4 down over defense? You know, are they, you know, 4-2-5 over? Are they bear? Are they, you know, man pressure, zone pressure, all those things. So just trying to get an idea of like, okay, what's their what are they trying to be, right? Also starting to get an idea of like, okay, not only what are they trying to be, but like teams did some different stuff against us that like wasn't their base identity because we're not like the rest of our teams in our conference, right? We're pretty unique, which is what we're trying to do. And so then also a little bit of like, okay, what do we think they might do against us? Starting to get that idea a little bit on Sunday. Then we get into Monday. That's like the true, like we're getting together as a staff and we're coming up with the game plan. We do like to start formationally, and then we just pull up the formation, and we've got, and I'll get as much into the weeds on this as you want, because, you know, Coach Janelle's funny. He's always like, nothing that we're doing is like rocket science. Like it's all like you can pull up film and like see what we're doing. But you know, we get together on Monday, we look at a formation, and we go through our all call sheet of like, okay, out of this out of, you know, 2x2, we call it box, dice, whatever you want to call it. Out of doubles, okay, out of all our calls, what do we like the most this week? What do we like the most? What do we love? What do we like? Right? And then we just kind of bracket it off, and you're definitely keeping what you love. What you like, it just depends. How much do you love out of other formations, right? If you're kind of light on what you love out of this other formations, okay, like let's go back to the likes. What are some ways we can do that? Maybe with motions or things like that can turn it into a love. Those are the conversations you have week to week on Monday. And And then for us, Tuesday, that's more of like the third down day. And then Wednesday, that's more of the red zone day. And then by the time Thursday rolls around, it's, we're still just like reviewing practice, but we're not thinking of anything more football wise.
Yeah. One of the things that I think it's interesting when I have conversations with coordinators specifically, it feels like everybody kind of has their flavor of formation that they really like. Like Joe at River Falls loves the wide splits. Caleb Carrill, down there at Georgetown, he was at St. Thomas before. He's really into the condensed splits and bunches and all that tight stuff. Where do you kind of sit in that category of things?
I think they're both awesome. It's again, it depends on like what your identity is and and how much you're capable of doing. We Last year we did a little bit more of the super wide splits. We have like pretty wide splits by default, not like Bethel, not like River Falls, but pretty wide at a default. But then we'll also get into some condensed stuff. It's kind of like our way of getting into like, I guess, Coach Kent, the DC here, when we were going air raid, he's like, okay, so it's going to be all 10 personnel at practice. He's like, when are we going to get our 11, 12, 13 personnel reps? Well, then we're getting into these like condensed, super like, everyone's like within the hashes, right? And then running like wide zone. He's like, okay, yeah, there's 4 tight ends on the field, like from a defense, right? So no, that's definitely something that we do. And there's pros and cons to all of it. Like from a DB perspective, like if someone's going to align, like I call them the ticks, like all the way, right? Like you're past the red line on the sideline almost with your lineman. It's like, okay, like he's breaking in or going vertically. Like there's nothing else. Now, that said, you're as an offense, you're utilizing the full 53 and a third. Like we always talk about using the full 53 and a third, but like you're making sure you use it and you're making sure they defend it when you align out there, which is going to create more vertical creases in the run game and stuff like that. So like that has a ton of pros, right? When you condense it, it's like, okay, the defense is condensing. You're creating more space on the perimeter. You're adding more bodies for run blocking. But now at the same time, it's like, okay, like who's blitzing? Like it's a little trickier to see like, okay, who are my blitz threats? Right. And so those are some things that come in terms of pros and cons of each. We do both. Again, not as much of like the super, super wide, but we definitely do the all the way condensed stuff. Yeah, that's again, what do you want to do? How do you want to get there? Who do you want to be? You got to ask yourself those questions.
Do you have a story of an in-game adjustment where, team was doing something, didn't maybe necessarily know they were going to do it, and you're kind of in your bag a little bit, and we're like, yeah, we got an answer for that. Like, you got anything? Is there any? You have any moments like that, maybe from this season or years past?
Yeah. We were playing a game, and this last year, and we were ready for like a true bear loaded box one high deal. That's what we were ready for. So we're like, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know if we had a run on the call sheet. Like we legitimately were like, okay, like great, this is us. We're an air raid offense.
Right.
We're gonna hook this thing. Like this is perfect. And then we get out there and it's a traditional 3-2, 2 high, 2-man cover 4 shell. We're like, that was not on film. And a cool thing, again, gonna keep gassing up Jack Curtis here, but again, like we always say, like as coaches, there's always that saying, like whoever has the marker last is the winner, right? Like who is going to be right. Like if I drop a play and then the defensive coordinator draws up how they're going to match it, and then I drop the counter and then whoever had the pen last is going to win, right?
For sure.
We empower the quarterback and our receivers, to be honest, and our O-line. Like all those guys have the ability to make some sort of checks in their own way. We got that look, and we have a rule, like if it's a 5-man box, and I got to get better at this rule too. And our quarter, like we all got to get better at this rule. But if it's a 5-man box, like we should be running the ball. We're 5 for 5, and Curtis just like looked at me, and I just gave him a thumbs up, and he's like, Yep. And we just called, like, he just checked run. Like, I kept calling pass plays and he just checked run like the whole drive. And that was a pretty fun. That was fun because that was one of the moments where Jack and I were just in total lockstep and being on the same page, right? And everything kind of came together beautifully in the sense of like when you feel like you just got an answer for everything, because you always say, like, we try to coach it so that, like, okay, if they're in this coverage, you have an answer. If they're in this coverage, like, every play has an answer to anything the defense can do. But that said, obviously the answer isn't always optimal, right? Like, you have calls that are like, this is better versus this is better versus that. And then just being able to have developed a system where we were put into the right call, not by me, but we were put into the right call. Like, that was pretty fun.
I guess you don't see it as much. Maybe at the P4 level as much. Like, you just don't see the cerebral, like, that sort of player, like, at the quarterback spot a lot anymore. I mean, you talk about not having a log into the transfer portal, like, it kind of makes some sense. Like, when you have a guy like that, now obviously kind of an alien per se, and Mr. Curtis over there, but it's that cerebral, like, killer mentality is like, you just don't see that kind of like, guys checking plays like that. Obviously, senior leader quarterback, been around for a while. Like, of course, like, you can say, oh, well, he's been around but there's not a lot of guys like that, in modern day college football anymore for a lot of different reasons. Not necessarily right, wrong, and different. Teams are going fast and playing, that style of offense, and that's exactly how teams want to do it. But you just don't see that as much, so it's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the one big thing is, like, us as coaches, like, a lot of coaches, we're control freaks. like like we get so little control on game day anyways, because we're not the ones out there, that, like, we just want, like at least that the play I called is going to get called, right? And it does take some, like, stepping back and, like, I'm going to trust him, right? Like, I'm going to trust him and what he knows and what I've been able to teach him and what we've been able to communicate and his just general ball knowledge to make sure that we're right.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge challenge. Obviously, you got to have a special quarterback like Jack Curtis that just gets it, and that is, trustworthy. But I think those are two things. It's just like, you gotta be willing to take the step back as a coach, and then you also have to have a player that's making the effort to take a step forward, right? And so those are some tricky things.
This last little segment here, it's just quick hits. It's just, rapid. We got 8 questions for you. You can elaborate as much or as little as you would like to on this whole thing here. So, first one, very simple. Best football movie.
Does it have to be a movie?
No, it can be a show.
Blue Mountain State.
Oh, man, yes.
I think if there's a question why I played college football, and I played college football because of Blue Mountain State.
That is awesome. That is. I've not had the answer before, so I love that. That's awesome. Pre-game song that gets you in the zone. Go-to pre-game song.
That's not me anymore. But Simple Man.
Oh, I love that. Yep. That's a good one. Who is a coach alive or has passed that you would love to sit down and talk ball with for an hour?
I mean, being an air raid, can't go. It's got
Coach Leach, baby.
That would have been awesome.
RIP. Yeah. One non-football skill that every player should learn.
How to communicate. I think especially nowadays, everyone's got one of these in front of their face, like 100% of the time. How to communicate face to face. How, like, phones are awesome. Email, text, like, there's definitely a time and place for both of those. But I think a lot of times young people can want to hide from difficult conversations with, oh, I can just send this via email. And it's like, no, like it's not even just young people, it's everybody. Like you'll have people that like send an email and you're like, no, that's a phone call. Or like you get a phone call and it's like, no, you got to stop down by like that should be a face to face in the office conversation. And then the opposite's sometimes true. Like you have a meeting and you're like, that should have been an email.
Yeah, for sure. That's still communicating at a high level. It's like, hey, let's not waste our time here with this 4-hour maybe staff meeting potentially. But yeah, absolutely. Non-football thing that you do to stay creative.
I play a lot of basketball, pickup basketball, which you might be like, how does that like help with creativity? But I really like free flow sports where the ball just gets put down and then people just make adjustments and you have to react rather than dictate. And we do have a lot, like especially like offensively, you think about. Defensively, it's all reaction. I mean, you blitz and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, it's reactive. Offensively, when you think of like sight adjustments, like okay, you're running outside vert, right? Are you sitting this down? Are you going vertically? For people that run like the deep choice stuff, or you bending it into a post, like what are you doing? Like there's a lot of similarities there, right? We have Coach Jernell, when he was he was lucky enough that when Mike Leach was at Washington State, he spent a whole spring ball like with them. And the receivers coach at the time, I don't remember the name. I wasn't here then. The receivers coach at the time said, stay in the move versus man, settle versus zone. What are you still doing here? Like you can go home. That's all you need to know. And like that's true. Like, okay, like that's a sight adjustment. Like you've got to be, are you in a soft spot in the zone? Like that's basketball, right? As much as it's football, that's soccer, right? And so I think that just looking at other sports is a good way of learning and staying creative.
Love that one. Yeah, that's awesome. Football phrase that secretly drives you nuts.
I get really mad when people go like, just catch the ball. That one.
Oh yeah, that's a tough one.
It's like,
I hate that.
That's not coaching. That's just, it's, it's no, why did they drop it? Right. Are they not confident in their hands? Like, were they jumping? Okay. Try to, cause some guys jump because they want to get their head still. Right. Cause if you're running and your feet are pounding the ground, like your head's going to bobble a little bit. You jump, head still. Okay, I try to catch it that way. Like some people, it's that. Do they not catch with their hands? Why do they not catch with their hands? Like, are they nervous? All those different things. It's like the PJ Fleck. He's got a great video talking about like we teach the U rather than the triangle because like the U allows you to receive. The triangle, it's harder to receive. Your elbows are flaring now versus like all those things. Like it's a science, just like everything else we coach. So that one gets to me.
I've always hated step into the throw. That's always been one that as a former quarterback, that one drives me nuts because I think things have changed a lot as far as like how mechanics are taught. And I was always a big mechanics guy. And like when I think it's a good buzzword for like getting your hips into it. Like stepping, you don't really. I don't know. I that one's always driven me nuts as a former. I'm more of a rotate guy. Like that's kind of my big thing with that. But without getting into the quarterback mechanic weeds too much.
It's driving into the throw more than it's
right. Yeah, stepping. I'm like stepping. If I step, I'm going to be off my base, and then I'm going to get off. I don't.
Yeah, you don't step on your golf. You don't step on your golf swing. Like
right. Yeah, it's same with well, okay. Now that we're getting into. I always thought like baseball hitting, like you or pitching, you step into that thing, like you are taking that long stride, but throwing a football is more like hitting a baseball, like you're getting that. Yeah, right, exactly. And so, like same thing with golf. It's the same, like you don't step into that golf swing like you said. So that's always one thing that like if you're like if you're like like a dad out there and you're telling your son and he's a quarterback to step into the throw, just drive. That's a good way. Rotate maybe a little bit better. We can be better. We can be better for sure.
Yep.
Second to last one here. If your offense was a band, who would it be?
Oh God. That's a tough one. Bowling for Soup.
I don't know if I've heard that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go check that out. I'll have to put that up there.
Yeah.
What was it again?
Bowling for Soup.
Bowling for Soup. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm excited to listen to this now. Okay. Last one here. What's one piece of advice that you would give to the next generation of coaches?
Be in it because you're selfless. Don't, I think it's easy now. Like you can see some of like the contracts coaches are signing and, where people are, just the whole landscape of college football. It's like, that's kind of becoming very much a transactional relationship between coaches and an institution and between coaches and players. And I just don't think that's not why I got into coaching. That's not why I got into playing. It's about relationships and meaningful friendships, long-term lasting relationships that go beyond just a sport, that go beyond just wins, losses. It's about truly making the people we coach better. And we get to do that through a game, which is pretty cool. And just get into it for the right reasons. Get into it because you love the game. Gotta love the game. Don't coach if you don't love the game. But because you love helping people become the best version of themselves. Because that's, at the end of the day, that's what we're all trying to do. And we're lucky enough to use a game to get to try to do that.
Man, gets me fired up, man. You're the man. I think the amount of little sound bites that I'm going to be able to get there's literally an hour, almost an hour and a half of just gold sitting in here. So I appreciate you. This was awesome. I'm excited for this thing going forward for you. I'm already biggest fan here. So keep grinding away. I appreciate you coming on and having this conversation, and I appreciate you, man.